America is built on diversity. Some people are white, others are not. Some people live in the city, others in the country. Political polling organizations strive to reflect that diversity in their results. But the difference in their findings can lie in how companies separate likely voters from those unlikely to vote. Carolyn of the American Enterprise Institute says most Americans insist they will vote.
We give them the civically correct response. We say, of course I'm going to turn out to vote on Election Day. And then perhaps around 60% of us actually show up at the polls.
Polling companies give more weight to certain responders. For example, African Americans and younger voters are expected to turn out in record numbers to vote for Democratic nominee Barack Obama. But if the pollsters don't gather enough of that demographic, they will add weight to the responses they do get. Bowman says that can be dangerous.
But some pollsters might decide that young people are unreliable voters.
I know some people who, aren't voting or just vote because of what their parents or their friends have told them.
Political polling took off in the 1930s. Back then, pollsters went mainly door to door. But the weekly magazine Literary Digest took a telephone poll and predicted Republican Alf Landon would overwhelmingly beat Democrat Franklin D. Roosevelt. So Roosevelt went on to become president, and the Literary Digest went out of business. The Gallup organization then took the lead in telephone polling. Gallup's Frank Newport says his company still uses phone surveys.
Gallup today primarily uses the telephone for our pre-election polls where we want to represent all Americans.
But remember the young female voter from earlier? She uses a cell phone. Polling companies that use automatic calling cannot reach cell phones. Nearly 12% of Americans don't even own a landline.
Another problem is that people aren't answering their phones or turning down the chance to appear in a poll. So pollsters have to poll an awful lot of people.
They never respond when the people call on the telephone, at least for the telephone polls.
Polls can change the direction of a campaign. In early October, John McCain's internal polling showed him trailing in Michigan. So the Republican nominee pulled out of Michigan to campaign in a more promising state.
Polling is like a thermometer which takes the temperature of the race all the way up to Election Day itself and is really a central part of how campaigns decide what they're doing.
Zogby International is one of the few companies pioneering in Internet polling. They also specialize in Middle Eastern countries, where cultural differences can pose problems.
You catch people having reservations and being nervous about certain questions that touch on their leaders. Benign questions by our standards.
Van Gilder says the abundance of U.S. presidential polls demonstrates the freedom Americans have to express their opinions. But whether the current polls favoring Obama are accurate will only be resolved on election night. Carolyn Presutti, VOA News.